The thing about cancelled video games is that they only really exist in the minds of players who didn't get a chance to actually try them out, which means virtually nothing can actually compare to them. They don't really exist, and as a result, they're as good as the people once looking forward to them can picture in their heads, and that means nothing can ever shatter those preconceptions because the game will never be playable to prove them wrong. It's kind of like Schrodinger's cat, only with video games that were put in the bin, so Schrodinger's bin? No? Either way, the following examples on this list all showed at least some promise, and whether they would have actually turned out well or not, they were, after all, cancelled for a reason. Their premises alone make us wish we could have tried them ourselves, you know, just to make sure. I'm Josh from WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 cancelled video games we wish we could have played. But first, an honourable mention, Star Wars Battlefront, the spin-off. So apologies for the massive continuity error here, but while this video was being edited, the news broke at Kotaku that EA had cancelled yet another Star Wars game last year, and it was just way too juicy to leave off, so, you know, apologies. These things happen. So, codenamed Viking, this was going to be a Star Wars Battlefront spin-off, but was actually an open-world first-person shooter in development at EA Vancouver. Vancouver had already taken over Amy Hennig's Ragtag after that was cancelled, but then their new retooling was also canned, and that was reshaped into Viking, which, according to Kotaku, was to be rushed out in a year and a half so EA could fit a financial hole. Why are executives like this? That's not why you should be making a game to fill a financial hole. Not much else is known right now other than its open world elements, as the publisher realized the time frame wasn't going to be hit, obviously, and then canned it completely. Which is probably for the best if all they had on their mind was hitting a deadline to make a bit of money. Again, that's not how you make games, EA, especially Star Wars games. No wonder you messed it up so much. Spat all over myself, but I'm very passionate right now. Number 10, The Simpsons Hit and Run 2. The Simpsons Hit and Run is a game with a shelf life longer than anyone ever expected it to have, as both gamers and non-gamers alike hold this GTA clone in high esteem. I mean, I don't disagree, but I would be lying if I said I wasn't a little bit miffed that The Simpsons Skateboarding and Simpsons Road Rage don't get the same love. Not Simpsons Wrestling though, that's trash, don't at me. Because of this widespread appeal, it's always felt a little odd that the game never received a sequel, or at the very least a remaster. It turns out though that at one point a follow-up was planned, and was canned due to EA taking over the license and deciding to make the Simpsons game instead, which at the very least did turn out well. The sequel wasn't far into pre-production before it was pulled, but the former devs have shed some light on what could have been. Quote, I remember our physics guru got connected vehicles working, so you could have a trailer being pulled behind a car with some fun results. End quote. Actually, if that's all they had, maybe it's for the best this actually got cancelled. Don't tell Rich I said that though. Number 9. Zone of the Enders 3. Zone of the Enders is one of those franchises that's fallen out of the cult classic spotlight over time, but older gamers will still fondly remember and, more importantly, mourn this series. The two fast-paced mech shooters were produced by Hideo Kojima, but sadly didn't manage to find the audience they deserved, even with the cheeky marketing tactic of bundling the sequel with the demo for Metal Gear Solid 2 Sons of Liberty, which did allegedly boost sales somewhat. Kojima reportedly always wanted to make a third installment, and development did begin, with the plans being to deliver a Zoe title that jumped around through time and different dimensions. Sadly, it was canned in 2013 due to the poor performance of Konami's remaster of the original titles. There might have been hope at one point for a revival, but with Kojima going independent and Konami being, well, Konami, I wouldn't hold your breath. Number 8. Aliens Hadley's Hope. I could probably dedicate a whole list to the sheer amount of Aliens video games that have been cancelled over the years, including Obsidian's RPG that was canned a few years ago, but there are a few recent examples that have just been revealed that sound just as interesting. One was apparently quite far along in pre-production and was titled Aliens Hadley's Hope, which was in development at Duke Nukem Studio 3D Realms and Slipgate Ironworks. The idea was that players would take control of a misfitting mix of colonists and marines on the titular colony, which featured in James Cameron's Aliens in a PvE story-driven experience. The crux Fox would be teammates working together to fight through levels and eventually take on the Alien Queen, of which there were about a dozen, with a live service hook that would have added content over time. So yeah, there were some red flags, but a multiplayer-focused Aliens game like this could have been genuinely quite amazing. Sadly, the game was scrapped when Disney bought Fox and decided not to push ahead with the project. Number 7. System Shock 3. The most recent cancellation on this list, System Shock 3 being canned, comes as quite a surprise, not least because I just included it on an article about games you won't believe are in development not too long ago, so who's the fool now? According to one anonymous insider, the entire development staff were laid off by the studio, in part thanks to the game being critically behind schedule. Apparently though, the main cause of the problem stemmed from original publisher Starbreeze, which entered its own financial troubles not too long ago and forced the scale of System Shock 3 to be massively scaled back. The former dev went on to say, quote, "We were a small team and we knew we couldn't compete with current immersive sims in production quality and breadth, so we had to be creative and clever and weird. And we were on our way to making something unique and possibly fun, but probably not what the audience was actually hungry for," end quote. The new approach actually sounded more interesting in a way though. After all, just what were these creative, clever, and weird ideas? Unfortunately, we'll never know. Number 6. Savage Starlight. Naughty Dog is one of the best studios working today, and pretty much everything they've ever touched, from Crash Bandicoot right up until The Last of Us, has been complete gold. The one genre they've never dipped their toes into so far anyway has been full-on sci-fi, but it's not for a lack of trying. Throwing around a bunch of different prototypes for their next IP when the team jumped from the PS2 to the PS3 era, one idea was a science fiction shooter informally known as Savage Starlight by fans. Unlike others on this list though, Savage Starlight could eventually see the light of day. The reason Naughty Dog have never talked too much about the project is that they might pick it up at some point in the future. Considering it's been close to 15 years since it was dropped though, I wouldn't expect a sudden announcement anytime soon. Who knows though, maybe for the PlayStation 5? A guy can dream. Also, while I'm here, Naughty Dog actually cancelled a Jak and Daxter reboot as well, and without even any details, I absolutely need to know what that game was and need to see it happen. Number 5, Bully 2. For the longest time, all of the rumours pointed towards Bully 2 actually happening. Every 6 months or so, a new batch of leaks would show up, indicating that Rockstar were hard at work on the project. But all hope was then dashed late last year when one insider revealed that the title was in production at one point, hence all the rumours, but it had actually since been cancelled. Apparently, the sequel was actively being pursued in the early 2010s, but the passion for the project fizzled out when the team couldn't quite figure out what to do with the original protagonist Jimmy, and specifically whether or not to move him from high school to college. Consequently, the title was dropped, which is a huge shame considering how big the demand is for a sequel. Number 4, Maul, Battle of the Sith Lords. Like Aliens, there have been so many cancelled Star Wars games that they probably justify their own list, but most fans already know about the likes of Star Wars 1313 and Amy Hennig's Ragtag already. One strange title that's always forgotten about though is Battle of the Sith Lords, otherwise known by its working title Maul, an action game that would have chronicled Darth Maul's journey following his supposed demise in The Phantom Menace. That alone is enough to get Star Wars fans salivating over its potential, but the project was canned in the prototyping stage due to a breakdown in communication between LucasArts, George Lucas himself, and developer Red Fly. Apparently, Star Wars executives were cagey about giving the team too much information about the character, telling them that the villain did indeed survive the events of Episode 1, but failing to fill them in on the plot of the in-development Clone Wars series. Consequently, all of the ideas Red Fly had were shot down because they didn't match the canon, which they weren't allowed to actually know. Then, after Disney bought Lucasfilm, the project was canned, but the team have apparently been trying to win over EA execs with a new Maul game ever since. Number 3, Bungie Productions' first-person shooter Alien game. As mentioned, there have been 2 Alien video games recently axed thanks to Disney buying Fox, and the second was Bungie Productions' untitled first-person shooter. Though that might sound a touch uninspired, I mean, after all, haven't we all had to suffer through enough mediocre or worse Alien shooters in the past, the game's plot does sound like the kind of thing that, even if it was executed poorly, fans of the franchise would have killed to see it at all. The studio, which was run by former Epic superstar Cliffy B before it shut down, was planning on bringing back Newt, now grown up and occupying the same space badass role that her surrogate mother Ripley once did. That character, on the other hand, would also appear in a support role, in what was described as the Cortana to Newt's Master Chief. The shooter would also be based on Earth after the Xenomorphs, which had been mass-produced by Weyland-Yutani, broke loose of their confines. It sounds mad and it might not have worked, but I want to see what it would have looked like. Number 2, Ubisoft's Untitled Mystery Game. Now this one is so high on this list not because of any actual concrete details that have been revealed, but because of the sheer mystique that surrounds it. In development at Ubisoft Montreal, nobody knew that the team had even been working on anything major until graphics designer Louis Decaruffel, I'm so sorry if I mangled that Louis, tweeted about the project that they'd been working on over the past 3 years, alongside over 200 developers no less, and that it had been cancelled in late 2019. Nobody knows exactly what the game was, but so many people working on it for such an extended period of time suggests something major. Considering there were also pervasive rumors about a new Splinter Cell being in development around the same time, and that some of the team members had a history of working on that franchise, it's not out the question that that project could have been a Sam Fisher revival. That's just conjecture though, and I don't really want to think about a new Splinter Cell game being cancelled because, well, my heart simply can't take it. Number 1, the Stormlands. Obsidian are no stranger to cancellations, but Stormlands was the biggest game the studio never got to make. Concocted as an exclusive for the Xbox One, the team partnered with Microsoft to realize the potential of cloud technology, which the publisher had high hopes for at the dawn of the 2010s. Apparently, the head honchos wanted to deliver something called the Million Man Raid, which essentially would have worked as follows. Quote, imagine you're playing The Witcher, maybe with a friend. What happens if at points in time a giant creature pops up that you can see in the distance, and it's not just popping up while you're playing, it's popping up for everyone who's playing. You all rush this creature, and as you're all rushing through the haze, the game is matchmaking you into 40-man raids who are going to fight the creature. Then you fight it, but while the creature is being fought, all the footage is being uploaded to the cloud. Then at the end, we could come up with some kind of intelligent editing thing which would deliver everybody who fought a personalized edited video of their participation in the raid. End quote. There's a great write-up on Eurogamer about the whole development, but essentially the scale of the project simply became utterly unfeasible and the title was canned. Who knows though, maybe now that Obsidian are fully owned by Microsoft, this mad idea might finally see the light of day on the Xbox Series X. I mean, we all know cloud technology is not gonna work, but a version of it would still be cool. So that's our list. Want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. Would you have been as buzzing as I was to try out these games, whether they would have turned out well or not? And while you're down there, can you give us a like, share, subscribe, and head over to WhatCulture.com for more lists and news like this every single day. I don't know why I always point behind me. There's never anything there, but even if you don't, I've been Josh. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye.